Hello, the Pioneer viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. Today I'm here again with a new report. In a moment, we will discuss the recent developments in Russia-Ukraine war. Problems in the Russian army are on our agenda again. We often raise this problem. In our last report, we talked about how the problem in the Russian army were identified by the Ukrainian army and turned them into advantages. In other words, every problem faced by the Russian army strengthens the Ukrainian armies in a way and gives an advantage to the Ukrainian army. In recent days, a report has emerged again about the problems in the Russian army. You know that there is a tension between Russian commanders and the Russian soldiers. This tension continues. However, a permanent solution to this tension cannot be found. These problems are actually covered up. As problems can always reappear at any time. It is thought that the recent developments will increase the problems of the Russian army. So, what is happening in the Russian army? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also help us reach more people by commenting on our videos. I read all your comments. Let's start if you're ready, the Pioneer reports. As you know, there are big problems within the Russian army. One of these problems is that the Russian soldiers ignore and disobey orders given by the Russian commanders. You can imagine what this problem can lead to for an army during a war. According to the latest information from our sources in the region, this crisis within the Russian army has reached a very large scale in recent days. This major crisis that arises especially in the regions where the conflicts are intensified are very big problems for the Russian decision makers and Russian strategists. In recent days, an incident alleged to have taken place on the Donetsk front line has found a wide coverage in international press. According to the allegations, a group of Russian soldiers received orders from their commanders during the clashes around Avdiivka. The content of this order, as you can guess, was a meat attack. Of course, Russian soldiers did not listen to this attack order, because many Russian soldiers lost their lives during meat attacks in the region. In other words, there is a bad and disturbing example in front of the Russian soldiers who will attack in the region. Therefore, Russian soldiers don't want to experience a similar fate with their friends who have previously participated in meat attacks and lost their lives. This is frequently reported to Russian commanders. It is even claimed that the firepower support is insufficient, claiming that the firepower is not working on the Ukrainian positions, but on empty positions, Russian soldiers refuse to attack. In the past days, a group of soldiers again refused to order to attack. However, Russian commanders also seem to have lost patience. Ukrainian resistance continues in Avdiivka, where they have been attacking for almost 2 months. However, the targets set have still not been reached. Therefore, Russian soldiers were punished by Russian commanders. According to reports, Russian soldiers were tied to a tree by their commanders early in the morning. Moreover, it was cold and rainy when Russian soldiers were tied to the tree. Allegedly, Russian commanders ordered the soldiers to stay tied to the tree until they agreed to fight on the front lines. A group of soldiers stood guard next to punished soldiers tied to the tree. According to the information we obtained from sources in the region, the number of Russian soldiers tied to the tree increased during the day. It is also claimed that Russian soldiers spent a night tied to a tree. Information about the punishment of the Russian soldiers was conveyed to international press by the wives and the siblings of the punished soldiers. According to the relatives of the sentenced soldiers, this is not the first time such punishment methods are used in the Russian army. The relatives of the Russian soldiers, who claimed that many times similar situations were hidden from the press, accused the Russian commanders of unscrupulousness. They also claimed that Russian commanders pay for their failures by punishing Russian soldiers. Simon Kaskorov, the brother of the Gennady Kaskorov, who was one of the Russian soldiers tied to the tree, claimed that he delivered a video of his brother being punished to an international human rights organization. However, According to the allegations, Simon has also started to be disturbed by the Russian army. According to the allegations, it is said that the Kasparovs brothers were pursued to give up their complaints and to publicly declare that the incident of being tied to a tree was carried out by the Ukrainian soldiers. It is also claimed that the videos taken by the Simon were forcibly deleted. This incident and many similar incidents are taking place in the Russian army. Of course, there is also a desertion problem in the Russian army due to these punishments and the events on the front line. As you may remember, in our previous reports, we mentioned that there was a possibility of an increase in the number of desertions in the Russian army. According to the reports of independent sources in the region, this claim was confirmed. According to the allegations, desertion cases in the Russian army have increased by 89% in the last few months in the number of Russian soldiers requesting help to desert from their army. According to the allegations, the Georgia-based organization Lesom has been making efforts to help Russian soldiers who have escaped from the mobilization for the long time. According to reports of the organization, about 500 Russian soldiers applied to Lesom to escape from the army in the last month. According to the Grigory Severdin, founder and director of Lesom, usually injured Russian soldiers decide to desert during the hospital treatment. Again, according to the allegations published in the sources, the majority of Russian soldiers who are recruited as reserve soldiers who realize that the possibility of being decommissioned is decreasing decide to desert. According to the claims of Russian sources, Russian soldiers who are tired of the war are now detached from the perception of reality and the sense of hope. Many of them are waiting for their fate on the front line, where there is not even military rotation. The wounded are still more fortunate because those who can find the opportunity to be treated have the chance to desert from the army thanks to the organizations such as Lesom before being sent back to the front line. As we have just mentioned, the number of Russian soldiers applying to the Lesom organization with a desertion request has increased considerably. Although the first month of the winter season has just begun in the Northern Hemisphere, the increase in the desertion gives us the chance to estimate the extent of the thaw in the Russian soldiers as the harsh winter conditions show their effect on the field. In the days when the summer offensives of the Ukrainian armed forces continued, the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, signed a decision to take away the passports of Russian soldiers. For this reason, Russian soldiers who want to desert face a very difficult situation during desertion. However, many of them still desert from the army by fighting these difficulties instead of enduring the harsh war conditions and pressure in the Russian army. What do you think? Do you think the problems between Russian commanders and Russian soldiers will grow? How can these problems affect the situation on the front line? Do you think the increase in desertion of Russian soldiers will continue? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.